This is FE Peer Review. The date is December the 21st, 2024. Antarctica, the right to travel, gas laws, planetary motion, gravity. A response to Dick Wayne, and yes, a bit of a mishmash. I had an interesting little exchange of comments on this video here. I'll leave a link to this video in the description. And I'm going to just scroll down a little ways. It was a fellow named Dick Wayne. Left a comment, got me started. I responded to that. I don't know if he's a flat earther or not. He's kind of arguing in support of flat earthers, but he hasn't actually said he is one. Doesn't really matter too much. If you want to read his original comment, you're welcome to. In it, he said, let's see here. Well, I wrote down here, you wrote, I don't recall even once hearing an anti-flat earther honestly, accurately represent what flat earth arguments are. And I responded, can you tell me what flat earth arguments are? Because frankly, I've heard very few flat earth arguments ever made by flat earthers. They tend to make arguments about why the earth isn't a sphere rather than why it's flat. And anyhow, arguments are just arguments, they're not evidence. But anyhow, I don't want to get off on a tangent. That was what sparked the second half of this comment exchange. I want to say, first of all, Dick Wayne, thank you for commenting, and also thank you for being polite and putting an interesting comment. I welcome that, and that's why I took the trouble to respond. So Dick Wayne responds, what's so difficult to understand? Seriously, every day to everyone, the earth presents itself as a motionless plane, observably, without fail. The sun, moon, wandering stars, and fixed stars all rotate above and around earth. They all follow their own unique circuits, like clockwork. Simple observation that is shared by literally everyone who has ever looked up. Very simple to understand. I'm going to take that and read my response to that part of his comment. First of all, the scale of the plane is the issue here. To the naked human eye, it wouldn't appear as anything else, regardless of whether it is flat or curved. So we have an issue of scale, Dick, and that's a common problem. Scale. And as far as motionless, we are born on it, part of it. We move with it as does the atmosphere around us. So there is nothing to feel in terms of motion. As far as the movement of the lights in the sky, this is an interesting one. It was the observation that the planets moved independently of other stars that first got scientists of ancient Greece to ask the questions that led to the discovery the Earth was spheroidal. Especially important was the observation of retrograde motion in Mars. Kepler was able largely to decipher what was going on, and Newton, trying to understand the cause of what Kepler observed, figured out gravity, the nature of masses to attract each other. It was anomalies in the orbit of Mercury that led Einstein to refine our understanding about gravity. So yeah, the clockwork, where's the phrase? They all follow their own unique circuits like clockwork. Yep, it was that particular observation that actually in a way sparked the whole research into the shape of the Earth and led to the conclusion it was a sphere. And it being simple, I'd like to point out that when you look at things like the retrograde motion of Mars, if the Earth was a sphere and everything was geocentric, that would be a lot more complicated than what we observe, which is heliocentrism. Trying to account for natural causes that would make Mars appear to loop around in the sky while the stars are going in simple circles, that's really weird when you think about it. Why would one of these things making loop-de-loops while the others are going in nice simple circular paths? So in fact, Kepler's solution is a great deal simpler. All right, now he says, going on, he says gas laws, the natural well understood behaviors of gas. Understood well enough, they are considered law. Gas laws, okay. Gas laws. The laws of nature do not exist independently of each other. Just as there are gas laws, there is gravity. Consider both, and the atmospheric gradient is the inevitable result. This is something I hear flat earthers do a lot, is to take things in isolation and fail to account for the complexity of combinations of interacting natural phenomena. And they tend to do this when they look for their own solutions to explain the flat earth. They tend to take things one at a time, like we see Joseph Hanvey with his little light on a plastic dome over a flat plate. He thinks he's solving a problem, the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. In the meanwhile, it completely contradicts a whole bunch of other observable natural phenomena. So these things can't be considered in complete isolation. Sometimes it's necessary to take a complicated problem apart into little pieces and look at each piece. But in the end, you have to put all the pieces back together again. So he goes on. In nature, bodies of standing water absolutely cannot bend, curve, or stick to the exterior of a shape. Well, there are countless images showing water adhering to small balls of various kinds. We've seen fountains. I know Creaky Blinder has a fountain example that he shows, and Wolfie 6020. But I will look at Earth-sized bodies instead. At rest, a body of water will measure perfectly flat, level. Nope. I've never seen any evidence of anyone measuring it as perfectly flat, level, and horizontal. I want to see the evidence for that claim. It says this is demonstrable at practically every scale. No, it's not. I have not seen the evidence for that claim. And I responded to that, quote, flat bodies of water. The Apollo photos taken from space refute that entirely. That's all that need to be said about to any rational person. The defense by the irrational person is to make baseless claims of vast conspiracies in which the entire space program was a hoax. So look at a photograph. We've got pictures of it, photographs of it. Why can't flat earth fighters never understand what is being claimed about Antarctica? Another very simple claim to understand. Antarctica is the most restricted geographical location on Earth. Okay, Dick, I encourage you to do a little experiment in support of that statement. You go over to Area 51 in New Mexico and you just try walking through the gates and see what happens. And now you can go off to a company like ALE that the final experiment used, and you can give them a little wad of money, and they can whisk you off to Antarctica. Which was easier? Which was less restricted? Area 51 in New Mexico, or for that matter, any military base in the United States, or going to Antarctica? Oh, he goes on about the Antarctic Treaty. And I responded, have you read the Antarctic Treaty? People are free to go there, but with conditions. This is no different than most other places on Earth. The treaty was only necessary because it was not a sovereign territory, an existing nation, and the world's nations decided not to lay claim to it. Consequently, some means needed to be put into place to govern it. The idea was to try to keep it as a place where people from all nations could go freely while respecting it. I don't know where you're from, but I'm going to assume you're an American like myself for purposes of example. Do you think you have the right to travel in the USA? You do, but with conditions, just like Antarctica. We are free to travel around most of the USA, but we are not free to travel into other people's private property or certain areas of government-owned land such as military bases. So the precedent of limitations on free travel is already well established even within our own boundaries. We don't have the right to travel freely over significant parts of the USA when you consider private property rights. But also consider all the other countries in the world. As Americans, we have no right to free travel in any other country. We always need permission of the government of the other country if we want to enter it. This is done with a visa. Even countries that are easy to enter, such as the UK, have the right to turn us back at the border. In the UK example, we don't have to apply for a visa in advance, but actually the stamp they put in your passport is, in legal terms, a visa. It's just that it is applied for and granted at the border when you enter. You have no right to expect to receive it, and they have every right to turn you back. So you don't have a right to free travel anywhere outside the USA, and even within the USA there are large areas to which you have no right to travel. So why should it be any different in Antarctica? And I guess I should point out one other thing. None of this stuff that he talked about, even if it were correct, is evidence for a flat Earth. None of it.